Committee is hereby called to order. Who is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? The State Senator.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Mary Ann.
For those of you who haven't been here before, we do it a little bit differently. We call the townships, and then if someone in the township can say how many are here from the township, it's a little bit different. Shanahan? 1. Creed?
1.
Custer? DuPage?
1.
Lawrence? Frankfort? 4. Green Garden? Homer?
3.
Jackson?
4.
4. Just a minute. Homer 4.
I don't know.
Jackson?
1.
Joliet? 1. Lockport?
6.
Manhattan?
1.
Monique? New Lenox?
2.
Vietnam?
1.
Plainfield?
1.
Reed?
2.
3. Reed? Troy?
1.
2. Washington? Troy? Wesley? Wheatland?
1.
2. Will? Wilmington? Wilton? Oh, looks like Lockport has it 6.
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many Franfort Township we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Bam!
For those of you here for the first time, anybody know how many townships we have in Will County?
24.
Very good. How many precincts?
300.
No.
23.
307. You know why? Where's the 7th? Aurora Ward 9. They never show up on the clerk's website because they're handled through the rural election commission. With that, I'll turn it back over to Joe.
All right. Who here are first-time guests? There's a lot of them here. Let's start out the back. Tom?
Tom Zulis, I'm an attorney in Frankfort. Live in Frankfort.
Any more about you?
Well, I'm hoping to run for Senate next year,
All right.
and we'll see how it goes.
Hey, thanks for coming out. Any other new visitors want to say hi and introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm John Curran. I'm the new state senator in District 41. I was appointed to the Fredonia seat. Thrilled to be down here with everyone. Formerly, I was a 9-year member of the DuPage County Board before the appointment. Very nice to meet everyone, and look forward to working with everyone here at the 2018 election.
You're going to do the update, but go ahead and introduce yourself now.
State Senator Mike Connolly, 21st District. Good to see you again, Mister. I represent Wheatland Township, in the northwest corner of the county, and Kathy Habel said, are you ever going to come to one of our central committee meetings? And I thought, why not get on 355 in traffic? And actually, like 20 minutes. It's really
not bad at all.
And I went to high school with the Gattos, so I'll try to make sure we get a good deal in town.
All right.
Thanks,
How was the deal like this? Any other first-time, members want to say hi? All right. Okay. Now, how about potential candidates that would like to talk about the upcoming primaries? Anybody want to say hi and introduce yourself as a potential candidate? Lori?
Hi, I'm Lori McPhillips, and I'm running for Will County Clerk. It's an open seat, and Nancy has some big shoes to fill. She's done an outstanding job. I've been working for the county. I worked for the county for 20 years prior to running for office. I was the recorder of deeds, so I know about running a countywide office. I was also chief of staff for the county executive, ran that office too. And I think what I'd bring to that office would be keep that level of commitment and level of service up like Nancy has done with her office and her staff. And I could walk right in and take over on the ground floor because I have the experience running a countywide office. I've won a countywide office. I've won midterm county board as well. And I know countywide government very well. And also I know countywide running for election very well. So I've worked hard and would appreciate any of your support. Thank you.
All right. I would like to thank we cut these off in about 45 seconds to a minute, so I'll do all of that. Anybody else want to say hi?
I'm a little out of practice in my 45 seconds.
Well, we'll catch you in practice right away.
My name's Bob Kodak. I'm treasurer for Judge Ben Braun's committee. He couldn't be here today taking his son to Tulane University, the freshman in college. He wanted me to remind all of you, he'll be calling all of us. I'm a Troy Township Precinct Committeeman. He'll be calling all of us in the next 10 days or so for help circulating petitions. That begins September 5th, as he indicated. Well, we all know that, but as he told us last time, he's hopeful to get 2,000 signatures in this countywide election for circuit judge. Also, he's asking for volunteers to walk the Frankfort Fall Fest Parade Sunday, September 3rd. Is that my timer or
no?
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right. Why do we do 45 seconds? Realistically, when you meet a voter, you're going to have less time than that to convince them. This room here, for the most part, are your choir. You're preaching to them. So we want you to be able to feel comfortable with that 45 seconds and not a lot of ums and a lot of this. So we want you to work out whatever you're doing. In this situation, we're all friends here, so we want you to feel comfortable to get your speech patterns down. And that always works out well. So 45 seconds should be more than ample time. Who's next?
I'll go next. Darren Deskin from Lockport. I'm currently a alderman in Lockport in my second term. I'm running for the 85th district at Emily's old seat. My main goal is to go down to Springfield and take a vote away from Madigan. That's it.
Here.
My name is Mary St. Campbell, and I'm running for Will County Clerk. Nancy is leaving us after 4 terms of office with a legacy of excellence, and it is imperative that we elect another Republican to carry on and continue this tradition. I've worked in the office for 3.5 years. I lead the election judge department. I recruit, I train, and I assign the election judges. I believe that it is important that her successor have the experience of and the knowledge of her office in running the election process. To win this open seat, we need the right candidate. In addition to my experience, I have a strong name recognition. I worked in the Lennox Grade School District as public relations, so I circled all 12 campuses. I also was executive director of the Lockport Chamber of Commerce for the Lockport Business District and surrounding districts. And probably one of my most important is that there are 6,000 judges who know me by name. I feel that I am confident that my reputation and my name recognition can be the candidate that can be an asset for the Republican Party. I believe that it is important that we carry on this tradition, this very proud tradition. We have had a Republican in this office, in the clerk's office, for almost 80 years, will be next year. And I think it's important that we carry on this tradition of legacy to ensure the integrity of the election process for all the voters of Will County.
Thank you. Anybody else like to say anything?
Hi, I'm Jim Riley. I'm running for Will County Sheriff. Thank you. I'll follow up real quick. I work for the Sheriff's Office now, but my main law enforcement experience is with the city of Joliet. I'm looking to just bring a level of professionalism and integrity back to the Sheriff's Office. They've kind of struggled lately, and we're hoping to be a very young department. I'm just offering a new direction. That's what I hope to do. So thank you.
All right. Any other candidates? All right.
Ward 6. When I was appointed to the county board, people from both sides of the aisle that I've known for years looked at me and said, thank God I have common sense. And I'll bring common sense back to that county board. So I'm going to run on a good common sense agenda and keep going. Thank you.
You get two of us.
All right. Double trouble. There you go.
We're going to be running for election for County Board in District 7, and we're not taking nothing for granted. We take no survivors, and we are going to go out and work our ever-loving butts off.
We need to, over the last several years, we've had the majority, we need to maintain the majority. That's why buildings are being built, that's why tax rates are going down. This year, for the 3rd year in a row, the tax rate will go down because we have the majority. So we do need to keep that. That's what we'll continue to fight for.
What's your name?
Mike, all right, I'm Steve Ballard.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna just ride on their coattails. I'm on the county board too, Gretchen Fritz. I'm in District 5, which is the northwest corner, and I'm gonna be running for re-election also.
All right.
Yeah, I was waiting for that. It's most memorable. I'm Steve Weber, I'm your county treasurer. I'm going to run for re-election. I'm happy to run this office. I'm thrilled. I reduced the fees. I raised the interest so much so that the Democrats had a hard time believing my numbers. And if I can convince even mentally impaired Democrats that I'm the right guy, I think the rest is easy. Thank you, guys.
Is that all we're talking about? All right. Nobody else wants to say anything? Okay. Forever hold their peace.
We're very fortunate we have one of our guests tonight that I've been trying to get, as Senator mentioned, to join us. He has a very small part of Will County and comes to just about every Wheatland Township meeting. That's the majority of the district. But he has done a phenomenal job providing legislative updates around the northern part of just northern Will County and southern DuPage. And so he's been offered tonight to come here and provide us with a legislative update tonight. Our senator from up my way, Michael Connolly.
Sure, thank you. Margo, you're not getting away with this. We'll let the rookie stay there.
Keep him past this
Well,
time.
let's also say, and this is our home base.
You're in my district.
Representative Margo McDermott is also one of our stars.
I'll give you the update. First of all, thank you, Kathy, for this opportunity. Mike Connolly, Senator, 21st District. I am running for re-election. I do have a Democratic opponent already from Naperville. Chuck Kern will soon learn that I run with my hair on fire, and I will crush my opponent and hopefully get the governor over the finish line as well. I want to talk a little bit briefly, I know more than 45 seconds, on Senate Bill 1. You've heard a lot about it. And as I suspected and predicted at Wheatland Township, Senate Bill 1, the governor's veto was overridden. Well, what is, when you go to the door, you have 45 seconds to say something about what is Senate Bill 1. It's real simple. Our houses, our property is included in the school funding formula 100%. Sears Tower and the Loop is not, because it's in a TIF district and because Barrios artificially underassessed that property. The governor came in and basically said, time out. If we're going to redo school funding statewide, then it's called local available resources. How do we know that the Dems and the Cook County Dems especially know that they stepped in it? Last Friday, Forrest Claypool had a press conference, and it was about CPS. If Senate Bill 1 passes, you're still going to be $280 million short. What are you going to do, Forrest? And he looked and he said, well, we will go to our local resources available to us. And then he said, well, we'll find out. We'll ask the mayor what he has to say about it. Well, they have $560 million in what is called the TIF fund for this year. $560 million. So they have plenty of money to fill that $280 million gap. Now, we've looked back, our staff and the Senate Republicans, with all due respect to the House, Republicans. You didn't look at what we did years ago. Senate Bill 16.
That was before my time.
Before you got there. Senate Bill 16, the Dems basically said, we're taking all of the suburban school funding away. Now, Lincoln Way, Naperville, Wheaton, most of our school funding comes from our property taxes, which is why twice a year we go absolutely crazy when we open up in DuPage. It's Gwen Henry. It's like, oh gosh, here it comes again. But that money goes to our schools. We get about $9 million in all the major school districts in DuPage and certainly down here. That was all taken away. There was an uproar. Andy Menard, Senate Democrat from Central Illinois, pulled the bill because essentially the suburbs were on fire. They were so angry. But what is Senate Bill 1? Senate Bill 1 is its awful grandchild. It is simply Senate Bill 16 with a 5-year phase down. What does it mean? It means that Chicago has the ability, and this is the 45-second. Chicago has the ability to fund their schools. They have the ability to pay their bills. They have more natural property wealth than any other part of the state. I mean, I work at 227 West Monroe, and I've got great pictures. The Blue Angels were flying around today because it's the Air and Water Show. The entire area I looked out on was the TIF district. The Sears Tower. Sears Tower was sold 2 years ago for $1.3 billion. Guess what it's assessed by Assessor Barrios? $500 million. Now, is your house assessed like that by your assessor after a sale? So your neighbor's house is sold like mine was a few years ago. I'm like, why did my property taxes go up? Because your neighbor sold your house for a lot more than you thought your EAV was. That's the point the governor's trying to make. We're going to redo school funding. Let's do it fairly. Fairly and equitably. I hate using those terms. I'm a conservative Republican. I mean, you know, fair and it's what you hear on MSNBC all the time. But in this case, it's absolutely true. Fair and equitable school funding would require that all available property, whether it's downtown Chicago or my subdivision behind Benedictine University, it's all included in the school funding formula across the board. That's what the governor's fighting for, fairness and equity for homeowners as well as commercial property owners. And I turn it over to the person whose lap is now in, Representative McDermott.
Yeah, you needed to have killed it before it got over.
We
okay,
tried.
now Senate Bill 1 has reached the Illinois House, and we have 15 days, I believe, to act on it before it dies. And so we were summoned down to Springfield yesterday, and we all knew by the time we got there that we weren't going to do anything because there's still not enough sense of crisis, enough sense of the sky is falling to get any Republicans to come over that Madigan is aware of. And so he's got to try to build the crisis for another week to see if he can get some Republicans to break for the children. So that's kind of where we are. All is not completely lost. There is negotiations going to take place tomorrow. I believe that they are actual substantive negotiations among the 4 legislative leaders and endorsed, condoned, invited by the governor. This is something new that we really haven't seen with respect to any issue, much less this issue. So what we should, the best outcome is that they will agree on some of these things, take some of the triple, quadruple, crazy dipping that Chicago's doing, take some of that out, and bring the whole bill to a more fair place. I don't think we'll get everything we want. Not everything, you know, there's no expectation that everything that the governor put in his AV message will be as a result of the negotiations. That's too much to hope for. But if we can get a bunch of it out, I think we can go forward with a structured roll call. If that doesn't happen, then will Madigan have the votes to override? He needs 71. He's got 67. That means that he's got to make 4 of us Republicans come over. And that also means he's got to put all of his suburban Dems on that bill. That's frickin' fatal. For John Connor, if he voted yes on that sucker, he's toast. Anthony DeLuca, toast. So he's not going to put those people on that bill if he can possibly help. That's why we haven't heard it yet. So he's got, one reason that I'm optimistic is he knows, as well as we do, that he's got to compromise because he does not have 71 votes. So stay tuned. It looks like we're going to go back Wednesday. He also said at his press conference that we'll even have one more opportunity to come back after that. I don't know what he means. I guess 13 and 15 is 28, so, you know, we've got a few more days to go down there again somehow. So the entire crisis from May 31st to now is manufactured. It could have been sent to the governor. The whole point was just to create crisis, get all the school children and all the parents whipped into a frenzy, so they'll call us and text us and beg us to vote for this horrible, horrible bill that would pour into cement this double, triple, quadruple funding for Chicago. I mean, it's almost more unfair than the current system. Yeah, it's really, and you know, the current system's been in effect for a long time, and over time it's gotten more and more unfair. It does have to be fixed. We can't go on as we are. But to make it worse, and to make it worse, it's about 30 years before you can come back for another bite at the apple. Oh, for 30 years, this bad formula?
Yeah, and I don't want to get into the weeds, but I won't vote for any of it because the bill itself was written by Ralph Martiri and the Chicago Teachers Union. It talks about adequacy, and Mark Batnick has a great example. He represents Plainfield School District. His kids are in the Plainfield School District. They spend $10,000 per pupil right now. Under this formula, that's inadequate. You have to spend $15,000 per pupil, which means where do you think that money's coming from? You know exactly where that money's coming from. And you're chasing costs forever. It's like the pension system. You're chasing these costs that continue to grow. The past system was imperfect, to be sure, but again, we found when Madigan 5 years ago said, you suburbanites get a free lunch on pensions. So we looked at it, and you probably remember the Senate Bill 16 discussion. They have 17% of the special needs kids, they take 35% of the money. They have 17% of poverty kids, they took 35% of that as well. We've only looked at the last 5 years, and they've taken $1.25 billion more than they should. They've never disputed our numbers, never disputed the numbers. So what are they doing here? They're codifying it. That's essentially what they're doing. And that's why, in a lot of ways, this bill's even worse than the tax bill, because this bill codifies continuous growth in spending for the kids. And our property taxes, I know what they are here, you know what they are in DuPage, it's at a tipping point. So at some point, you gotta look at cost before you look at revenue. This bill is really rotten to the core, and I hope, frankly, I know Mark Batnick filed House Bill 4085 today. I'm the Senate sponsor. It will hold harmless all school funding at the same level, and go back and if we're going to redo the funding formula, do it fairly and equitably so that no one side of the state gets an unfair advantage to the detriment of the rest of us, especially those of us out here and in DuPage. We're paying extremely high property taxes.
And, you know, there are students of color and students in poverty and developmentally disabled students throughout the entire state, and yet Chicago is, you know, if you're against this formula, you're against, you know, poor children and children of color and children with special needs, as if they all lived in Chicago, which we know they don't. So
to those who are running for office, excuse me, Margot, in the south suburbs that may have African American populations, go look at that Tribune series on assessments in Cook County, where the rich white billionaire near Wrigley Field had his property under-assessed already and got a reduction, and the woman in Markham who's trying to make ends meet had her property taxes increased. She doesn't have a lawyer, she doesn't have the ability to do it. Fort Heights spends $28,000 per pupil, $28,000 per pupil. I don't know how that's even possible.
And they got that Ford plant.
And yet that Ford plant is looking to leave. And then finally, too, the county board, please, do everything you can to keep them Republican. It gives me great joy to know the Republican Party is running the Will County Board as opposed to the past. So please, and our countywide, get them elected. I was just talking about the last election for sheriff, and I'm like, wasn't it really, really close? It was 300 votes. I mean, that is what, maybe 2 people a precinct, a person a precinct? I don't even know what it would be. But you should be proud of your county board. They're doing a terrific job. No, they are. And with that, I guess that's our cue.
We'll see you next week, Margo and Mike. Quick question, sure, no problem. All right, you mentioned the Sears Tower and Willis Tower. Was that assessment that beforehand, or did they go to a law firm to get it reduced? They went to a law firm.
What law firm would that be?
So Maddie's law firm gave the reduction to the Sears Tower?
Well, the assessor did, but his firm was the lawyers for that.
So Maddie has personally made money off of that reduction, and we aren't nailing that in the news?
The governor brought that up the other day in his...
I had an op-ed about that about a year ago.
Yeah, you brought that up.
And another member of the Illinois General Assembly, a guy named Rob Martwick, attacked me. I didn't know he was a property tax appeals lawyer until I wrote the piece about how it's a racket. People in the legislature are creating the problems and then, personally, in their own finances benefiting from it. And I was attacked. And then, lo and behold, he couldn't get his financial disclosures right because they were too complicated. Okay.
Yes, Steve?
Do you have any idea if Ronald's going to sign the sanctuary state bill?
I can only say this. I hope not. I hope not. Obviously, I voted no. I voted blank no. But I just have to say, that was a vote I'm very disappointed. I mean, Dan McConkey, Karen McConaughey, Redonio, Nybo, Althoff. I mean, we had a number of our own colleagues voted for that bill. It's an awful bill. Law enforcement in Springfield, they'll come to me privately, and they'll be like, please tell your caucus this bill is awful. And it'll say, the Sheriff's Association is neutral. Sullivan and those guys, so they're neutral. And then they'll tell me privately, please kill this bill. It's awful. Basically, if you have somebody you saw what happened in Barcelona today, if the New Lenox Police Department has someone on the State Department watch list as a danger to the American government, and ICE is called and they're on their way, they have to release them. They have to release them. And it's a terrible bill. We've made our position clear, and I'm hopeful that it'll be vetoed. Yes, ma'am.
Have you heard any rumblings about any change in the governor's position with strategy campaign with Rasmussen and Brett on board?
He has a new campaign team.
Exactly.
I met the
Have you heard anything about it?
I met the new campaign manager from Wisconsin, who was Senator Ron Johnson, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson's campaign manager. Betsy Ankney is her name. I think she's 32. Matt Besler is the campaign director, and he's also focusing on House races. But they brought in a pollster and data guy from Pennsylvania who ran the Toomey race for Senate, and then Betsy Ankney who ran the Ron Johnson race in Wisconsin. Christina Rasmussen. She's not on the campaign though.
She's on his staff now.
Oh, yeah.
So do you see, these people they're coming from Illinois houses,
Yep.
they're different breeds.
Oh, yeah.
We like them a lot.
Oh, I love them. It's a more aggressive, policy-driven on the government side, and it's certainly a far more aggressive position on the political side as well.
Do you think they'll have a big influence on it?
I think they already have. I really think they have, yeah. It's kind of nice to text the legislative director, Darlene Sanger, who used to be my colleague in the House of Representatives, and give a suggestion about a bill signing location, and they're like, good, we're doing it on this day. So, yeah, it's a different, with all due respect to the other staff, it's something that we hope he vetoes. I'll put it that way. But what's in front of us is Jamie Pritzker and Bruce Rauner. And one of those two is going to be drafting the next remap. For those who've been, like, who's from Shanahan, who has her district completely rewritten. Senator Curran used to live in Woodridge. They come all the way up into Woodridge. If we redraft, I would love to take some of that back and make my Republican district a little less Republican so I can grab more state senators and take the majority back. But that's what's in front of us. That's really what's in front of us. And it's going to be a scorched earth campaign. They're going to be all over, certainly in Will County in the north, and they've got people running against Holcren. They're going to spend a fortune against Peter Roscom, which is a large part of my Senate district. And what I say is bring it on. If the people of Naperville think the problem with Springfield is we need more Democratic state senators who want a progressive income tax, sanctuary state and all that, then maybe I'm just not reading my neighbor's tea leaves the right way.
All right,
But at the
I
end of
was
the day,
really shocked
I don't
when
think that'll happen.
I was at a Farm Bureau event, and many Democrat elected officials were there, and talked about how the budget that was just passed is a compromised budget. Well, here's what they meant by compromised budget, at least on the House side. Many members of the Illinois House wanted to spend $41 or $42 billion. They wanted single payer, they wanted free college, and all these things right now. So for them, it was a huge compromise to accept 36. So this is what we're up against. So, I mean, that just blows your mind when you hear something like that.
It's revolt or bolt. So I'm on the revolt team. So I hope you guys are all with us. Yes, sir.
Well, you just make this comment, it's not too nice to make, but I will. For anybody who ran into Pittsburgh and Washington, and they realize that this generation of Pittsburgh children are not going to win any academic awards, and if they is elected, whatever method it wants, is what method it gets.
But he was smart enough to turn off the bathrooms in his $5.5 million townhome on Astor Street to make sure the assessor reduced the assessment on his property so that the rest of the county of Cook could pay higher property taxes. Yeah. I think we're all going to learn all about his bathrooms by the end of the election.
One more question? We have one?
All right.
Keep that fighting spirit, Will.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, do we have any updates from our Will County board members?
We had an interesting day today. Today was the board, and Larry gave the State of the County speech. It's a very interesting speech because he took credit for every single thing that he was against that our majority pushed forward. The building of the Sheriff's Department, the building of the County Department, the fact that we're working on the Health Department, new building programming right now, and the fact that we bonded for $175 million, and we'll probably do another $75 million without raising our tax rate at all. All of those things Larry took credit for today. That's typical of what happens there. So again, our majority has been holding well. We've been moving the county forward. We had some issues today about pensions. And I think we're kind of lockstep on that, so we'll continue on that. We got rid of pensions for the county board, so no county board member will get pensions. And then I don't know if you want me to mention my trip to DC, but on behalf of the county board, I represented us at a congressional hearing in defense of the salt tax. So the tax reform that's happening right now in Washington, one of the things they want to do is take away the ability to, on your federal returns, from deducting your state and local income tax and your real estate tax. Now, in some states like Florida, who cares? They don't have a state tax and their real estate tax is not that bad, but for Illinois, New York, New Jersey, California, Texas, some of those states where they have higher real estate taxes, it will really affect us. Now, the plan is to raise the standard deduction, which is good, and you still will get to deduct your mortgage interest, unless you can't meet the threshold to get into a situation where you itemize. Then your mortgage interest goes away too. It would crush the housing industry, just crush it. So I was given the opportunity to speak in front of 60 congressional staff, with some mayors from Virginia. Very fun experience for me, and hopefully we've got them thinking about we can't do this. We also talked a little bit about keeping the municipal bond exemption, which of course again is very important to Will County right now, as we're in a big building phase, and we'll need to continue doing some bonding for the rest of the buildings. So that's the bulk of what's happening now.
Question.
Yeah.
You just made a comment that the county board eliminated pensions for the board.
The county board.
For the county board.
Right.
When did that happen? Because that's
Last
news to some of us. That should actually be a big story and should be on the front page of the
No, we got a little press, but
when did that?
September 2016. So the state had mandated that we vote on either continuing with pensions, requirement of 1,000-hour minimum work, or we could not vote and the pensions went away. So as of last September, pensions went away. So no current board member is in the pension system anymore. Now, they may have been in it for 15 years and reached the age where they could collect their pension. That pension is preserved. But no current county board member is in the pension system, and no future county board member will be able to get in the pension system. And what we talked about today was countywide. So today, countywide, there was an issue where IMRF was asking us to vote on the fact that countywide work a minimum of 1,000 hours so that they can participate in the pension system. It really wasn't appropriate for us to vote. We don't have that authority, so there was a lot of back and forth on that. Many of us spoke on how we feel, and this is my personal feeling too, that elected officials shouldn't have a pension. It's not supposed to be a career. It's supposed to serve the public and go back into your profession. But that was the discussion today. There was no vote on that. We don't have the authority to eliminate the pension at this time. But I'm sure at some point the state's going to make us vote on some of those things. Countywide pensions, municipal pensions, township pensions. I'm sure at some point they will.
I'm still not clear on what you're saying. Is there a resolution passed at the county board that was voted on by the county board members that said you're not going to participate in IMRF?
Well, we did it a little different way. By not voting on it, we let it pass because we were required by whatever the date was, October 1st of last year, to certify that the county board members work a minimum of 1,000 hours to be able to receive it. By not certifying, we eliminated pensions. They will never come back.
But every action does have a reaction, and it was the board that
Through
actually...
inaction, they actually killed.
Right. However, before that, the legislator passed saying, hey, no longer does the 600-hour minimum cut it for a full pension. You have to work 1,000. So then they wanted the county board members to fill out these forms to say, you know, how many hours you got to turn in time cards. I mean, the majority of the people weren't on it on our side. Weren't on it anyway. So at that point, IMRF wanted us to certify that we work 1,000 hours. If we were gonna have to sign that document, and we did not want to sign the document, we asked them, if we don't sign the document, what happens? They said, well, then you're ineligible to continue to stay in the IMRF. So a little different than what happened today. What happened today is they wanted us to sign the document stating that our countywide work 1,000 hours a year, and that, you know, to be eligible for their pension. The state legislator has stated that the county board has no authority setting the hours. And the majority of our side was upset because we don't feel that someone should get a full-time pay, full-time health insurance, dental, vision, and pension, and only certified that you work 20 hours a week. We just felt that if they would have came back and said certified 2,000 hours, I think more people would have been apt to say, okay, we'll sign that paperwork. But at 1,000, we didn't feel comfortable, so we said no. And then their attorneys advised us that what we're doing is illegal. Our state's attorney says we can't deny it, we can't remove it, and then there was this big back and forth, so we just decided no action. The county-wise will then have to certify themselves and fill in the paper, so if it ever comes back, it's on them to show that they worked their 1,000 hours and that they did it. Because the county board, we were prepared today to just end the pensions for what's good for us, good for them, kind of the whole thing, but, you know, it didn't work out that way.
So each county board had to do this last year?
Yeah, we were the only ones that raised it.
We were the only ones that eliminated, and it will not come back. It cannot come back. We can't have another vote.
All right, move on.
I want to remind everyone that we do have a Republican majority, and I think we're really proud about that. But of the members, that we have 16 of our 16 Republicans on the county board, 12 are up for election in this cycle. That's huge. So with everything going on in the state and the districts, et cetera, that's a lot. So we'll have a lot of work to do to maintain. I know we're also going to try to pick up a seat in Bolingbrook to add to the majority, but that's something really important to keep in mind. And I neglected to mention when Margot and Mike were talking about the legislative information that proudly every one of our Will County Republican House members and senators were on the right side of these issues in Springfield. And I'm proud of. Okay, tonight we last meeting, we started talking about more. There's often a lot of confusion between property taxes, tax rates, and levies. And I've asked our county treasurer, Steve Weber, to talk about that for us tonight. Thanks.
Happy to do that. How many people think they're paying too little in property taxes? I didn't think so. Okay, here's
Chicago
how...
is.
Chicago, definitely. Here's how it's done in Will County, and I call it the key three offices. It's the county clerk's office, the assessor's office, and the treasurer's office. It really starts from the taxing bodies submitting their levies. And what the senator was just talking about is those are over levied. We all know there's too many layers of government, there's too many superintendents in the school system. So that's what starts the ball rolling. Those levies come to the county clerk's office at Will County. She has to certify those levies. And Nancy looks at those levies to see how much they've increased. They can only increase so much compared to the CPI. Those go to, believe it or not, she has a tax extension department. Most people don't realize the county clerk does that, but she does more than just record the votes, run the election, vital records, marriage, death certificates, all that fun stuff. The tax extension department is sort of in the back. Nobody knows about it except me and a couple other people. They got some number crunchers in there. They're heavy. They're almost like actuaries. It's pretty thick stuff. But keep in mind, when they're doing their work, then that moves upstairs to Rhonda Novak, the Will County Assessor. And she would apply the exemptions, the homeowner exemption, the senior exemption, the veteran, if you're fully disabled, you get a 100% exemption. She applies some of the agricultural exemptions. She looks if you're commercial, industrial, or residential real estate. And then, once that's all done, it comes down to me. I get the bill, and I mail it. It's inked. When I get it, there's no playing around with it. It comes to me. We ink it. We mail it as efficiently as possible. We collect it. We invest it. We distribute it. $2.2 billion. And we balanced that to this penny last year, I'm proud to say. So that's the process. But when you're talking about the tax rates and everything, you gotta just focus on, real simple, when you're talking to your constituents. When those schools levy, let's say one school district, let's just say $2 million. When she's applying for the tax rates to that, she's modifying that rate to come up with $2 million. That's the ultimate goal. You're still going to get $2 million. So that's where we got to save money. Over here. It's not, the levy's the problem. Everything is coming to that, and it says right in I downloaded the county clerk handbook, and it says, we apply the rate that we need to get to that levy. It's that simplistic. There's no smoke and mirrors. It's not a hidden calculation. I think I spoke to Paul Kopas's group, because the sheriff's office has 3 bargaining units to deal with, and they thought the sheriff was lying to them, so Paul threw me to the wolves, and he said, Steve, you're a neutral guy, you tell it like it is. And I went over there and cut through the crap, and I said, there's no hidden fund in the county. There's no contingency. It is what it is. That's why, and I wanted to talk about that, these 3 offices that are up are very important. There's a ton of jobs, hundreds of jobs over there at the sheriff's office. The county clerk, we have to have the integrity in there. Rhonda and Nancy and I we have a monthly meeting in my office, and we go over, are we hitting our dates? Are we all looking good? What do we got to do? Did everybody do their work? To make that happen, it's a fine oiled machine. And if one wheel goes out of whack, we got issues. So, anybody have any questions relating to that? Yes?
Yes, you mentioned that it's tied to CPI. Levy exceeds the CPI?
Only through referendum.
Only through referendum.
Every time,
So Joe,
I'm gonna stop.
does that
Okay, so-
prevent somebody spending beyond what they?
No, I mean, Lincoln Way's in the hole $5 million a year. It doesn't mean they can't spend more. They're just in the hole and they gotta figure out some way around it. I mean, the levy is the villain here for 90% of the, I mean, when you get your tax bill, who likes to get their tax bill? Anybody here? You all should, because it's literally a report card of the taxing bodies. We do not own property here in the state of Illinois. We rent from the government. That bill you get is your rental payment. So every taxing body that says to you, listen, we provide you value, and for that value you can live here, and if you don't pay Steve, we're going to take away your property and give it to somebody else. They will pay that bill. Now, each and every year, every one of those taxing bodies has the ability to either lower their levy, keep their levy the same, or raise it. And they can raise it, the limit, the guy named Hank G. Vecchio passed it in '80, was either 5% or the CPI, whichever lower. Now, thankfully, the CPI is tied to a low, the CPI, does anyone know what CPI is? Consumer Price Index. What that is it's a governmental number put together by what has happened to a loaf of bread, what has happened to a gallon of milk, and what has happened to a gallon of gasoline. Well, that gallon of gasoline has been hammered for the last few years. So the CPI number has come out quite low, which is helping us. Now, when the CPI number was jumping heavily, our property taxes doubled in 14 years. Doubled. Now imagine in the next 14 years them doubling. Who will afford to be able to live here? And when we talk about when they can bypass it, referendum. Whenever you see that word referendum, you have to understand that they're going to take the amount that they're allowed to raise, and you are giving them the ability to raise it even above that. And that goes on forever. We have Lincoln Way. We know that in 2021, a $320,000 house is going to get an extra $400 bump in their tax bill because of the referendum that was passed back, you know, when they were able to refinance at whatever. And there's nothing we can do about that. That's in addition to whatever their CPI increases that year. The reality is the levy. And for whatever people want to talk about tax rates and so forth, listen, assessed values are going up. Assessed values going up means tax rates are going to go down. When assessed values plummeted, tax rates went up. The people that complain about tax rates, it's just the operand in the middle that makes assessment equal levy. Levy is the key. It'll always be the key. It's what generates tax bills. And until somebody stands up and says, we're going to put a limit on levy, nothing is going to get solved. Until somebody says, listen, there's never going to be a pension above 3 times the average worker's salary at $120,000. Nothing is going to be solved. We as Republicans have to look at all of these issues and push it to our constituents. The countywide, Judge Braun, who absolutely has to get elected, our county board candidates. We're in a hole, and they're looking to dig it deeper, and we got to start climbing our asses out of this. So, absolutely. And Steve and I will talk about property taxes. It is a #1 subject, and I know we're all upset by it, but there's so many more nails in the coffin. Yes.
Joe, that raises the question, we were talking about Will County here earlier, and I think we asked some of the Will County board members, is there any, you say the levy is the whole key, which it is there any plan to reduce the levy at the county board or at the board?
Well, but here's the trouble. Here's the trouble with that exact statement. Until you take the power out of public sector unions, nothing you can't do. I mean, you can sit and rally against every school board candidate in the world and say, listen, you need to start lowering the levy of your school district. The problem is the public sector unions aren't stupid. So when they go in to renegotiate teacher contracts, they negotiate the CPI increase into it. So they're still with a 5-year contract. Now, you as the school board member, either take the CPI increase or you cut out janitorial and then your kids work at a school with or no busing. I mean, the problem is, the true fundamental problem in the state of Illinois is taking the power out of public sector unions. And until you do that, we are really going to have trouble. Why is it Indiana has a situation where they can get property taxes so much cheaper than ours? The reality is this, is you go to Crown Point, Indiana, Their school superintendent makes $100,000 or $98,000 a year. Ours makes $300,000. He has 2 underlying people and 1 principal in each of his schools. We've got 8 and 15 levels of administration through all of our school system. And on top of that, they'll have 3 retired people ahead of them that are getting pensions where they're generating the full income that they made when they worked. So we've got 4 people paying 4 people for 1 job. And until we get to that subject, that mountain or whatever, we can argue all we want about school funding or this and that. That has to stop. And we have to have, leaders that are going to do something.
And well, what we're going to do is we're going to start getting some of this information out, Facebook, email, our newsletter, to start helping our constituents hear this information.
I'd like to respond to that question too, though, and apply the answer to the county level, because the county board did a great job. Kudos. I just prepared my budget, and they said, okay, guess what? It's going to be static. It's what you spent last year. Yeah, thanks a lot, you guys. I cut myself, and then they cut me more. They go, hey, I'm one of you. So anyways, I'm all right with that, because I'm very tight. It's that simple. So the budget gets adopted, and they hold the line. But then, I'm holding all the checkbooks. So then I get a notice that the bargaining agreement was settled, and I got to come up with a 2%er or a 3%er and apply it on all the bargaining unit. And I'm like, no, I've already invested that money based on this budget, and I've got to pull a short-term investment because now we're overspending. This was not in there, so it's a supplemental appropriation, and it's legal to do that. So that's how it gets out of balance in a hurry. You can be a fiscal conservative and run it as tight as you want, and I always tell them, hey, I'm bringing, you planned for this much interest, and I brought you 6.5 times more. Not double, 6.5 times. Even on the pension fund. The pension fund kick in, the county said, let's put $1 million into the sinking fund to fund our pensions. And by the way, I'm making 10% interest on that fund. Nobody else is even close to that. We're kicking butt. But the $1 million that they wanted in, I'm kicking in $178,000 a year in interest that they don't have to pull from other departments. So yeah, it is coming down. We're trying, but other people are eating it up.
Well, and I'll tell you what eats it up. This year, the insurance, and just the health care, is going to go up $2.3 million for our existing people. Existing people, $2.3 million. So somewhere, you have to have that additional money. Now, you can cut the budgets of other things, but you don't cut so much.
Right. And then add in the fact that the state's cutting $1.4 million out of our budget through different, the program, that budget that they passed. So now we're at 3.7. So let's just say we froze the levy. Now we're 3.7 million short. Let's just say we just took new construction, because that's something we didn't talk about. When Amazon builds these big units and they build 5 locations in Will County, the new construction, they are paying in additional money into the fund. So let's just say we didn't touch the CPI, we didn't do anything, and we just took the new construction in, the new people that come into town. We're still $1 million short with just the insurance, and the cut from the state. So, and keep in mind, we're talking about this, but last year, when you added the amount of money from your Will County taxes, your the group that cut the levy and the building commission, and then the forest reserve, the whole amount of out-of-pocket actually went down. And we only make up 4% of the tax bill, or 5% of the tax bill, too.